Hello, welcome to my news show. So I did actually plan on looking up some music to go with this last night, but I realized I still had to write like half of the articles I was going to talk about, and that took quite a bit longer than I expected, so it still looks just as unprofessional as last week, but I'm okay with that. Rockstar has released their next update for GTA Online, and with that they also released a trailer, which I will not put in the video because YouTube and Rockstar's Content ID matches scare me. So instead I will just insert generic gameplay footage that I recorded myself. I will, however, put a link to the trailer in the description so you can check it out for yourself. They are calling this update Further Adventures in Finance and Felony. Doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, but whatever. This update will contain a lot of features that have been in previous updates, such as new properties and vehicles, but of course that's not what makes this update special. They are adding what seems to be a bunch more things to do in free roam. Rockstar says this update gives players the opportunity to expand their organization and become CEO of their own criminal enterprise, which, of course, involves buying and selling contraband. The trailer doesn't exactly explain what the update includes specifically. It just shows some cool video clips from what I assume are to be the new missions. Since this came out yesterday, the same time that Mirror's Edge Catalyst has come out, I still haven't played the update yet, but hopefully I will get to that later this week. As much as I like free DLC, I would love to have something new to single player. Possibly a different story mode of a sort that includes zombies. I'm just saying, if there's an Undead Nightmare DLC for Grand Theft Auto 5, I would buy that instantly. At least maybe this update will add some things to allow me to play more online alone, because that's what multiplayer is intended for, right? This topic should actually have been in last week's news video, but I didn't see the article until after I had made it, so I'm putting it in this week's video. Fallout 4 now has official mod support on the Xbox One, and PS4 should be getting the same treatment sometime this month. You can either browse the mods directly from your console, or you can go to mods.bethesda.net, sign in, and favorite mods to download later onto your system. Currently, you can install as many mods as you choose until you reach the set limit of 2 gigabytes. I don't know if this is due to technical limitations or to make sure people aren't installing absurd amounts of mods and then complaining that their game doesn't run well, but this number may or may not get increased sometime in the future. If you are someone who wants to make mods of your own, it requires the free creation kit from Bethesda that was released some time ago, and a PC version of Fallout 4. Then after you make them, you can get them converted to the console versions. Whether you care about Fallout 4 mods or not, if you're primarily a console player, I think this is still something to get excited about. This is the first time that mods have been easily accessible on console at all. Back in my day, I used to do basic game save mods for various games, which back then required me to save the game to a flash drive, move the files to my computer, use some program to modify it, then move it back to the flash drive, and then load it back up on my console. But now, everything is kept in the same place more or less. Hopefully, the same feature will be implemented into more and more games. With Treyarch planning to release a mod tool for Black Ops 3 this year, there might be a possibility of having custom maps on console. I just wish I had access to something like this 7 or 8 years ago, back when I actually played console. Superhot is going to be getting some free DLC, though a release date hasn't been set yet. The DLC is said to contain new levels and even new game mechanics. Except, this isn't really the topic I want to talk about. The developers of Superhot have announced that they are working on giving the game VR support, which is cool and all, but people seem to be a little upset because it's going to be an Oculus Rift exclusive. Or at least that's how people are taking this announcement, because it was never actually stated that it was going to be an Oculus Rift exclusive. The developers only said that Oculus Rift is their primary focus for now. So, a Vive version could still be on the horizon. I do want to talk about exclusive VR games for a bit though. Both Oculus and Vive have a set of their own exclusive titles, but why is that? Well, as far as I'm aware, Vive's exclusives are all room scale experience games, and currently Oculus physically can't do room scale, at least not the way Vive can. Oculus, on the other hand, has exclusive titles because they are directly funding games for their device. While this can be good for game developers because it allows them to make more of a niche type of game with less of a financial risk, it unnecessarily divides the consumers of VR. Now, there have been console exclusives for years, but this is different. Total Biscuit has made the comparison many times that making exclusive games for different VR headsets is like making games exclusives to certain monitors. Now, I can agree with this 99%. If you boil it down, VR headsets are basically a glorified monitor and controller combination. Games aren't made exclusive to specific monitors, and games aren't made exclusive to specific controllers. So there really is no reason, when we combine the two, to have exclusives for those. The seated experience that Oculus gives is completely possible with the Vive. There's even a third-party program/hack called Revive that allows the user to play Oculus exclusives on the Vive. Now, here is my 1% reason for disagreeing with Total Biscuit. Even though Oculus is releasing their own wireless controllers similar to the Vive's wireless controllers, they are still going to be different. It isn't impossible for the Oculus to do room scale, but it is still going to be different than the Vive. Now, I'm not a game developer, so all I can say about this are based on assumptions, but I can imagine developing something for Oculus is going to be different than developing something for Vive, at least when it comes to room scale. Making a game work on both an Xbox controller and a PlayStation controller, I assume, is mostly just remapping the controls from one controller to the other. But the two VR headsets, and more importantly the controllers, they are designed differently. So I imagine developing a game for the two headsets could possibly require designing two completely different kinds of controls. For seated experience, this isn't a problem, because the Revive program has shown that it can be done. But if you compare the two controllers, they're similar in ways, but they are still different. They have their buttons in different locations, and probably have a different number of buttons. So, I'm not saying this gives developers an excuse to develop a game for one headset and not the other, but it could result in at least a timed exclusive for one of the headsets. Maybe after Superhot developers are done with the Oculus Rift support, then they will move to the HTC Vive. Silent Hill fans just can't seem to catch a break. In August 2014, PT was released on the PlayStation Store, which people later found out was a demo for the Silent Hills game. Then, unfortunately, that got cancelled in April of 2015, but after that, an indie team named Lilith Limited started creating a game they called Allison Road, which many people hoped was going to be the Silent Hills that never was. Unfortunately, it was a little too similar to Silent Hills than people wanted, because recently Allison Road was announced to be cancelled. When Lilith Limited canceled their Kickstarter, Team 17 decided to publish their game for them. With less than a year into development, they had to cancel. Sometime in the next few days, the team behind the game will explain why they ended up canceling it, but until then, there is only speculation. I've never played a Silent Hill game in the past, and I haven't really known of any other kind of story-driven horror game, so this is a genre that I don't really know much about. However, horror is my favorite type of movie genre, And from what I've seen of Allison Road, this was a game that I may have actually picked up and decided to play. I'm not usually a big fan of the hiding simulators like Outlast and Alien Isolation, but those are the only types of story-driven horror games that I know of. On to happier news. Actually, this game was delayed as well, but whatever. Playtonic Games has released their E3 trailer for Yooka-Laylee, and I think this is their first sort of official trailer that they have for the game. If you don't know what Yooka-Laylee is, it's essentially Banjo-Kazooie. A lot, if not the entire team, were people who have worked on the previous Banjo-Kazooie games. Now, unfortunately, the only Banjo-Kazooie game that I've played was Nuts and Bolts, so the only thing I can confirm is similar to Banjo-Kazooie is the soundtrack. But either way, I am looking forward to the game, and I suppose I should talk about the delayed release date. I think it was originally supposed to come out October this year, but now it's pushed into the first quarter of 2017. So hopefully the game's new goal is to be released before the end of March. With all these games getting delayed multiple times, hopefully this is the last delay that the game will have. So those are a few of the topics that interested me over this past week. I will try my best to include links to all the articles and trailers I talked about in this video. And I guess feel free to rate the video accordingly, and as of now, I still plan on doing this weekly, so subscribe if you want weekly updates on stuff that I find interesting. That might not be interesting to you, but, you know, it's whatever. Do what you want.